And once again, it is time for the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. It's another day in paradise, Mike.
I've got the coffee silo. It's going to be okay. I'm just telling you. Listen, folks, if we've got Ludwig von Wiedendorsky and Miles Bauer, our co-host, helping this morning. We've got a very full plate. There's a lot of stuff happening. But listen, before I really get going, I really wanted to kind of like subtitle this episode as "Why," because when I look around the United States right now, at least what I'm seeing on the major media news sources, and I add that caveat because I know that they lie a little bit, just a little bit, but it makes me feel like how many E's do you put in that when you do that? Makes me feel like I'm trying to be a little more liberal. Makes me feel like our school systems are flat off the tracks. And I don't know if that's real or not, but what really started me down this path for this episode was I was emailed a video clip made by junior high school students a few days ago, and it was clearly made a couple days before the election. So I'm seeing it after the election, and it's a whole series of young folks, 14 or so years old, and each one of them is reading a little, I don't know if it's a teleprompter or notes, but they're clearly reading it. You can tell by their eyes. And listen, whoever wrote the words that these young folks are reading, first off, by the way, the video was really professionally done. It was good stuff. It wasn't like they did when I was in junior high. I'm just saying. They had top shelf equipment that we paid for, I might add. But it was crazy uber liberal. Now, Miles and Ludwig, you guys, I let you guys see the clip. Am I describing this unfairly?
No.
At
all. Go ahead, Miles.
No, I was going to say, it looked, top shelf.
Listen, I got to tell you what I interpreted it as, and you folks tell me if I'm wrong, but to me it was propaganda. It was right out of a different time in history's propaganda. It was clearly designed to motivate the children to think in a certain fashion. And listen, I used to opine about the reading, writing, and arithmetic, and the transitions to a rounded education, which I said the hole in the middle of that donut used to be the reading, writing, and arithmetic. They filled that hole now with propaganda. They really have. It's over the top. We're letting junior high and high school students take the day off, go have some time, go picket. Let's take this hour to make signs to, and you go, no kidding. That's where we're at in this country.
They're encouraging the high school students to actually leave and go to, there's one that encouraged them to leave and go protest at the mall.
I'm just, it begs the question, where are the parents? It really does. I mean, I have to be that way. I don't know where the parents are to allow, even if you liked Hillary and you didn't want Trump, I get all of that. But we have a Republican form of government. Small r, folks, don't throw stones at the radio. We have a Republican form of government. We have a system in place that's worked longer than any other system in the world because we have things like peaceful transition that the news media spent so much time talking about on the eve of the election, but they don't appear to actually want it. So I don't know. I'm flabbergasted at the fact that not that the schools are doing it. I get why they're doing it, by the way. You've got Donald Trump talking about school vouchers and all kinds of things to bring competition to the educational system in inner city America. And Lord knows anyone listening to the show has heard me talk extensively about saving the educational and families of inner city America. So when Donald Trump's saying that, I'm telling you, I'm on board. But the MEA and the NEA and all the other union folks that hover around our educational system, they're not impressed at all. And that's what we're really seeing. We're talking about paychecks, not education. That's really what you're an educator. Am I off in the left field here?
No. I remember in high school, they would literally tell us, this day is count day. You have to be here. This is how we get the money for you.
What does it mean to be count day? Just for
they would go through and count all the students that were there, and if you weren't there, you were considered not getting funded for.
So that's what it was. You could skip tomorrow or yesterday, but today,
You better be
today's
here.
head count for Do Re Mi.
Yep.
Listen, some of it I actually get. It's math. I do. I just get it. I think they need to be funded. But I'm reminded a little bit of the thing we talked about a few weeks ago, or at least I mentioned in passing, with the one of the I think his title is executive director from the Grand Rapids school system, who well before the election was posting information on his Facebook page that suggested that Donald Trump was Adolf Hitler. And so I responded back, and the guy's been a friend of mine for 10 years. Now, we're not close, but we're associates in the political realm. I responded back that why are we not talking about Hillary from the Stalin point of view? And then I offered that these kind of conversations are beneath us. And to his response, he's the executive director of a school district. His response was to unfriend me. And folks, these things, they're not helping our republic. They just aren't. They're not helping our republic.
So as a director of a school, he's okay.
No,
that's allowed.
But what I don't want. No, let's not.
District.
He's an executive director of the district. He's not the guy in charge. He's not a superintendent.
No.
He's the guy you hear a lot about on the radio because he does a lot of interviews through the year.
Yeah.
Okay. He's the face of the administration. My interpretation. I don't know what his job actually is other than his title.
But somebody who publicly represents the school.
On occasion, yes, I've seen him a lot
Is
in the
allowed to post that.
political arena. I thought it was
cop who flies a Confederate flag on his truck is being fired.
Maybe he's a history buff. I have no idea. But talking about that era, I get to say what I always say, Abraham Lincoln. Because if we think we've got a zany culture going on right now, by the way, folks, I don't care if you're left or right. If you're being honest and look at our culture, we've got a zany culture going on. And yet I look again at my two favorite quotes about education and where we are at. When I read Abraham Lincoln, the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation is the philosophy of government in the next. And so when I look at what they're doing with the 13, 14, 15-year-olds in junior high with these uber far left propaganda pieces that they're spooning these folks, this is not reading and writing of what they, and by the way, they ought to be working on cursive, but that's just my humble view. And I read that and I go, really honest, is that really the America we want? Which goes to the other one that I've been often quoting lately, me, a constitutional originalist, getting to quote Malcolm X. Because he's exactly right when he said, only a fool would let his enemy teach his children. And so, when I have that conversation with family, friends, and folks on Facebook and folks in the political arena, their response is always, and I get it, by the way, but the response is always, yeah, but what are we supposed to do? We've got to go to work. Yeah, we do. We do have to go to work. And we've done the math on that problem before. The average, assuming that you're talking about a nuclear family where there's a mother and a father, if they both work full-time, by the way, that's the catch here. If they both work full-time, whichever one makes the lesser wage, that person's entire annual income pays the combined tax of the family. And I'm going, well, that's a really ugly trade. We have to sacrifice our children to this propaganda machine because we're busy paying tax. That's how I translate that, which begs the question of where I start. What are we thinking? Why are we allowing this? I don't get it. Miles, over in Illinois, where you're at, it's even worse than it is in Michigan. Am I wrong?
Yeah, we and we continue to do nothing about our ever-growing debt, other than just spend some more.
Yeah, they're teaching nowadays that debt is not a problem. That's just part of the reality of our culture. And listen, I'm not a theologian. I'm not ever going to take the show down that path. But doesn't it say something about the debtor is a slave? Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, we're on the wrong path, folks. I know this personally for a fact. It doesn't work, and to do it as a purposeful mechanism to fund ourselves is insanity to me. That's what I see. I don't know how anyone can argue with that.
Well, the country is showing people that that's how you live, and people are following in step with it.
Well, and Mike, when have we ever drawn the line? You remember when you and I were coming up and Lee Iacocca was running New York City?
Right.
and Carter went in there and bailed him out.
He absolutely did. Listen, now he's giving me the big twist. I think it's either my neck or I got to go to a break. Folks, we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Mike Hewitt Show. Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com because you deserve it. The Mike Hewitt Show is brought to you by renegaderiver.com. Flying into segment 2 already.
Folks, if you're just dialing in, we've got Ludwig von Wiedendorsky and Miles Bauer helping to make this a show. Listen, what I wanted to talk about in this segment is the state of the new Trump administration going forward. And if I flop around on the different websites, Yahoo and et cetera, or cable TV or broadcast TV, man, I can get a really conflicted sense of what's going on because depends on how far left they lean. Notice I didn't say if they're left or right, just a question of how far left they lean as to what version or vision or story they're spinning. Miles, is the Trump train on tracks or what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, contrary to what's been reported. The press has now moved its narrative towards there's chaos breaking out. Trump didn't know that he needed a staff in the West Wing, which is difficult to believe in light of the fact Pence has been there, Newt's been there. There's just so many people that are all already on board that are aware of so much of this stuff, but that the media is selling all of this. And I won't say a bad word, but I'll say male bovine dung about that. The train has left the rails.
Nice
and
job,
it's
Miles.
Just careening out into nowhere.
I gotta tell you, to me, when I watch it, it's laughable. It's the same folks that. In fact, I watched this little montage that was put together in one of the medias, and it shows the zany left, the MSNBC people, Rachel Maddow et al., as from the Trump announcement of running for presidency forward, just one snide laugh. I mean, rolling on the stage, laughing at the concept of him, up until you see their faces on election night, and but they can't let go. They can't let go, and so any way that they can paint this, they're going to paint it. Kelly, the campaign manager, said absolutely, obviously they knew. But what folks don't understand, anyone that's done any hiring, by the way, understands what I'm going to say. I've put together teams of 100 people. Putting together a team of 4,000 people is going to be very complicated because those 4,000 people that you're trying to handpick from across the country, they all have ongoing lives. They've all got children and spouses with careers, and you can't just say, "Oh, I'm excited. I'm going to move 4 states away to the District of Columbia and live happily ever after for eternity." It's just not a reality. That you have to go through each person on an individual basis to make sure that the circumstance fits the person's ability to do the job properly. And the media knows that.
Remember who we're talking about. We're talking about a guy who's built hotels, golf courses, buildings in foreign countries, domestically. So he's had to go through projects of enormous size with an enormous number of people. That's what's kind of that to me kind of provides the laughable background when you put that in context.
Especially with, to your point, that Gingrich is involved. He's been there, done that. Pence has been in so he's surrounded himself with some very key inside people that have been around for decades, along with, to your point, coupled with many decades of him being a hiring magnet. Everyone laughed about his the show he had. What was The Apprentice? That was based on the concept of hiring people, or not, by the way. And so here in Michigan, we're all talking about Mike Rogers has left the team. He wasn't never part of the team. He didn't leave the team. He went over there to see whether it would fit together or not, and evidently it didn't. It is the way the media paints this stuff, so the folks that want to hear negative, anyone that wants to hear negative, folks, guess what they hear? They hear negative. That's what they want. And listen, it's a funny thing because negative can almost always only cause negative. That's what you get out of negative is negative. And that's what they want to be. And so apparently that's what they want for us is negative. I don't know. I don't get that. But the irony of it is that the stock market, we kept hearing about how the stock market supported Hillary. The stock market's going crazy. They're going, wow, we got some freedom in our possible future. Well, the stock market, folks, equates to jobs. That's economic growth in a country that's had stagnatic growth for almost 8 years. Actually, over 8 years.
It's a scary situation because December 14th is the day the Fed meets, and Janet Yellen will raise the rates, and it will bring the market down, and she will be fired January 27th. But unfortunately, she will have an effect on the stock market before that.
She'll dampen the market, and all the folks are going to go, see, look what happened.
Yep.
No question about that. You're right.
And
about
the market
that.
needs adjusted. It's not a real market right now. It's a falsely inflated market. The bond market is where people make money to live, like Romney's and the rich. And because they've kept the rate at zero for so long, up until 9 months ago, they made it to 0.25%, and have not adjusted it since because the economy, they kept saying wasn't ready, but it's going so well. They're going to kill the stock market on Trump, and you know what? I'm not worried. He will handle it, and we will be fine. Because he's going to make it where it should be, and we're going to have everything back to where it should have been already.
It's fun to watch it because if you keep what they're saying and doing, including what you just suggested may most likely come to pass, it's kind of, fun's not the right word, it's fascinating to keep that in mind while you look back at the last 8 years. I'm reading this. Obama's presidency will end with Democrats in possession of 11 fewer Senate seats, more than 60 fewer House seats, at least 14 fewer governorships, and more than 900 fewer seats in state legislatures than there was when it began. That's staggering also. And there's it's like these folks that are on both ends of the United States, not us unwashed masses in the middle, but the extreme left in New York and the even more extreme left in California. It's like they can pretend that this is not happening. But we heard for 6 months that the Republican Party was at a civil war. The Republican Party right now is going through the strains of normal, coming up to a convention for leadership. That's what it always has been. On the other hand, I mean, the Democrats had to put off their vote for minority leader in the House because they can't come around Nancy Pelosi. They've got a genuine political crisis going on underneath that umbrella. But it goes to the results of what those stats I just read for Obama's legacy. In those folks thinking, well, the reason it didn't work is because we didn't get enough left. Seriously, that's what they think.
But you know what, though, Mike? Don't you find it fascinating, even looking on our side? Paul Ryan, before the election, looks like he's ticked off that Trump is the candidate, doesn't even acknowledge him, doesn't even say his name. Then all of a sudden Trump wins, and now Paul Ryan is his best friend, and he's thrilled and he's excited.
I'm indifferent on this one.
Don't you think Ryan's just a little two-faced?
No. I believe that you wear a jersey. You're all. We're all Americans. We're all Republicans. We may be two parts of different Republicans, but when it come time, you come together. I don't know. I know that I had to do this. Mike's had to do it as candidates.
You're talking about when you lost, and then you said, okay, now I've got that was the primary. Now we're hopping into the general, and we're on board with whoever beat us. Yeah,
and the same thing here. Yeah. Ryan's jumping on board, going, okay, you're the president. Let's go. We got stuff to get done. I don't think it's two-faced. I mean, he should have backed him more than he did, but
it's a rough one. I don't know.
Politics.
It is politics, but I think politics goes to even things like Pence, who's friends with him. That wasn't an accident that Trump picked Pence, wanting to build a relationship with the House and specifically with Ryan, knowing that they weren't exactly on the same page on all of the issues. So that's a different way of looking at it.
That pick proved to me exactly why I like Trump. He's going to put the right people in the right place.
Yep. All right, folks, we're going to go to another break, and when we come back, we're going to have some real fun. We'll be right back.
This is the Mike Hewitt Show. RenegadeRiver.com is new and used firearms, all priced to sell, plus ammo, reloading supplies, optics, clothing, lasers, and yes, tactical gear. RenegadeRiver.com, family owned right here in Michigan, because you deserve it. And we're back to the Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by RenegadeRiver.com. Segment 3 has begun.
I'm telling you, I think I want to call this particular segment, let me see, privilege and classism. I think that's what I'm thinking about, because when I look at what I'm hearing in the media now, when I look at what we're seeing across the fruited plains, the young folks that are doing the picketing, man, they're sitting pretty good. When you sit and look at them, you got high school kids saying, yep, go do this. But the college students that are mostly going to state-level universities, they're not going to the local community college while they're working full-time for minimum wage flipping burgers. Someone's paying their freight, and we've talked about the cost of college freight before on this show. It's crazy. It's almost as bad as buying your cotton balls from the local hospital. It's insane, crazy high. And so you go, the kids well dressed. They got all these, Tommy Hilfiger. What? How do you say that guy's name?
Hilfiger. I
can't stand that name, so I'm teasing. I can never say it right. But listen, they're well dressed. They got nice cars. They're going to these university schools. They don't have a clue what in the world the word bill means. Any of the word bills mean, and they're picketing. I'm going, what can you possibly be picketing? I don't understand that. And then I get into the underlying things about things like, if I don't want to pay for everybody else's birth control, I must be a gender biased racist. All of these names because I don't want to buy someone else's condoms. No, I don't want to. I'm sorry. That's not my place to. I think it's immoral, by the way, for the government to be in that position. That's my personal belief. But I look at all of these things these folks are being fed, and of course they don't have any facts to compare them to, so they must be true. They're believing it, and that's scary. It's classism, which is the foundation of socialism.
Well, you heard Facebook's going to go through and weed out these media that they're considering false, because they feel that this may have swayed the election. So I was going to ask Facebook, does that include like clearing out CNN and MSNBC?
And Yahoo
and all those, because they're telling you false lies just as much as somebody in their basement.
Yeah, I think what Facebook means is that it's fake media if they don't agree with it.
Yeah. That people are too dumb to distinguish that this isn't possible.
But they may be right on that, because there's a lot of folks buying into this.
Yeah.
That they're buying into the fact that I must hate women if I don't want to buy birth control for them.
I've seen people share news stories from The Onion, which is a satirical newspaper.
Yep.
Share them as if they're truth.
But listen now, in their defense, I've gotten caught up into that before, where you're looking at some site and it's presenting something, it may look reasonable. Now 5 minutes later, I'm deleting it. But typically, when I see something that's too good to be true, I know that it is, and so I look for other sources.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I remember we joked a few weeks ago about how I got included on Snopes or Snopes or whatever they call that website, because I'd posted something that wasn't true. I immediately removed it. They didn't mention that part.
No.
But sometimes it's difficult to discern these things, because these folks that are creating these false narratives, and by the way, it's on both sides of the aisle, all sides of the political, whether libertarian or uber left or uber right, they all have got these websites that create these satirical stories or false. The big one going around recently was about the popular vote. Mm-hmm. I saw that everywhere, and a lot of my good friends shared that. And it's not true. It just isn't. It's just math. But they do that. I've always wondered What's the goal? Are they just selling advertisement? I don't know what drives that.
There was a test yesterday on Facebook. It said Bernie Sanders has found a loophole to become the president. And it's being shared everywhere. But if you clicked on it, it would actually talk about how people don't read the article. They see the title, they share it, and then they spew it out as if it's fact. Did you guys see that one?
Yeah.
I didn't see it, but I see circumstances like that all over the place.
And I clicked on it because obviously I went, well, there's a loophole. Let's see what's going on here. Click on it and it says, gotcha. How many people actually read this article? And it'll list all the problems with these way they're doing clickbait essentially. But people are sharing it and treating it as if it's fact just from the headline.
Listen, but it's little things that kind of dovetail on. I joked a little bit about the free birth control. There's no such thing as free. We know who's paying for it, the folks that are working. But along with that, it's some of the caveats that are stuck in Obamacare or the proposed replacement. You can stay on mommy and daddy's insurance until you're 26. We've had a lot of U.S. generals that were younger than 26 that were let me say it again, that were U.S. generals in our armed services. And I'm going, wow, are we really making our young folks that childlike, that they were a U.S. general in charge of armies and now they stay on mommy and daddy's insurance? I can't get my head around the difference in the culture in really a short period of time.
Which I was shocked that that's one of the two things of the ACA that Trump would have kept or wants to keep.
I think because there's a lot of pushback on that one. But
I don't get it.
I think it's a real statement about our culture.
At 26,
I do.
Me and my wife had 2 kids.
And you had already graduated with a master's? Or were probably close to that by then?
I went back to school a little bit later.
Okay.
But by then you would be if you went right straight through. I mean, 26.
Doctors.
Yeah.
And generals. And you're going, but you're 26.
They're encouraging you to stay in your mom's basement.
I got 4 daughters, and they're all adults now. The youngest of them just turned 29 here within the last few weeks. And I can't fathom, when I look at my own world, when I was 18, Miles will laugh at this, but when I was 18, I must have looked like I was shot out of a cannon. Boom, gone. I never looked back. I don't get that's one of the changes in culture that I don't understand.
Yes. And Mike, to your point, I mean, I forgot 8 years ago to set myself on fire and blow up 3 buildings and kill 17 people.
You were busy working. That was your problem. Yeah. If it weren't for that, you could have went out on the picket line and made stupid signs and spelled the words wrong, by the way.
But, I mean, I just forgot to, lose my mind. I forgot to schedule my psychiatric appointment because I can't deal with the results of the election. I forgot to go to my safe place. Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, we just created the beautiful little snowflakes.
There were teachers, not the kids, teachers with tears streaming down their faces, and they were not capable of instructing their class. They were so devastated.
That's a fact.
Yes,
and you go,
my son told me his math teacher could not teach math class that day. She was crying so hard.
And you would think that
apparently some kid came to school with Hillary for prison, and the kid was told to go home and change.
Wow.
I would not go home and change, and I would storm into that school and let them know that I will escort my kid to every class.
Escort?
Yep.
Yeah, he ain't leaving and I ain't leaving.
Are you talking about some silly notion of First Amendment rights?
Is that what
is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
You can only uphold them if you have the Second Amendment. I'm just saying.
Don't worry, it'd be with me.
Listen, my reaction 8 years ago to President Obama winning was I was halfway through writing my first novel, America's Final Beginning. I was literally at the halfway mark. And I went, oh, my timetable's wrong. I stopped writing it for about 6 months. that was, but I wasn't distraught. I don't know how to tell the story now. We're already here. So that's a truism, but I'm just, it's when I read these things, then I have to pause because I know the media lies when the truth sounds better. So I often wonder if what I'm reading, is it real? Are they really doing this nonsense? And of course, you two are telling me that, yeah, it is.
It is. I can tell you 100%.
I find that fearsome.
I just got another email yesterday from the school, one of my schools I teach at, saying that they have drop-in counseling hours. I'm going, are you kidding? This is a week later, people. Literally, get over it. And one student last week said, yeah, I had a teacher who was crying, couldn't even get a lesson plan together. Last Thursday when I walked into one of the schools, I teach at two schools. One's way more conservative than the other. When I went to the one in the afternoon, it was like half full. Yep. It was somber. It was a weird feeling.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I'm like, where is everybody at?
This must have been what it was like in the Soviet Union when they discovered that it was over. Yeah. You got to wonder what it was like behind the wall when the Politburo went, ruh-roh, we're in trouble. All right, folks, we've got to go to a break, and we'll come back and do a little Enigma. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Mike Hewitt Show. Renegade River, guns and ammo, and so much more. Old-fashioned service with surprisingly low prices. On M104 at the top of the new 231 bypass in Utica. Or find us at renegaderiver.com because you deserve it. You're listening to The Mike Hewitt Show, brought to you by renegaderiver.com. You have arrived to your final destination on your journey through reality. Welcome to the Enigma Report.
And the Enigma Report today must focus on the Electoral College mystery. I say it's a mystery because it seems that there are so many people that just don't seem to get it. And I find that fearsome, that those folks don't understand, small r, a Republican form of government, what the purpose of a republic is, what federalism actually means, or why mob rule is a little problematic, especially when you're electing a president. I'm telling you, folks, we have got to implore our educators to educate, or we are going to be in some serious trouble down the road. I don't know how else to say it to you. We have got to get a hold of our country, its educational system, and who's pouring what into our young people's minds. It's a problem. If you do the man on a person on the street interview, the vast majority, overwhelming of the folks you'll encounter, they don't know what the Electoral College is. They resent the fact that the popular votes did not carry the day. They just don't seem to understand that we should equate it to that guy that got pulled out of his car and plummeted, beat. That's what mob rule was. That's what an absence of the Electoral College will look like. That's the fundamental reason why our founders would have never advanced the Constitution without some form of protectionism, in this case, the Electoral College. Miles, am I all wet?
No, I mean, this is potentially the fourth time that it's happened in the history of our country. The most recent one, obviously, is the famous 2000 election, where Gore had more votes and Bush ended up pulling it off. But I can't see in my own mind, how do you look at Rhode Island and New Jersey and Delaware and ask those people to just be subservient to New York and California?
It's truly an amazing thing. But what amazes me more on it is the folks that are supporting this, what they call it, the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this, Miles. I'm looking at it right now on Wikipedia. And when I look at the states, folks, just so you understand, the concept behind this is that each state is supposed to agree to give all of their support to whoever the popular vote winner is, regardless of what took place in their state. And right now there are 11 signatory states and several, including the state of Michigan, that has this halfway through their legislative body, along with, I think that's Pennsylvania as another. So that would presumably bring us 11, 12, 13 folks that are saying, regardless of what our folks say, we're going to go with the popular vote. I guess I understand why California would be on board with it. If you look at the math, and folks, it's important to look at the math to understand what we're saying. Miles, I think you did the math for California and New York State. Is that right?
Right.
What did you discover?
So the difference between Trump and Hillary in those two states alone was about 4.5 million votes.
Right.
And in light of the fact she's got a 1.2 million vote lead now.
So
what that basically says is that, outside of California and New York, Trump has her by a couple million votes.
Right.
However, though, two things. Trump did not go to California. Trump barely touched New York. That's number one. Number two, if you live in those two states, if you're Republican, do you even take your time to go vote? You know the state is going blue. You don't waste your time. If you know it's a popular vote, things change.
No, listen,
Right.
You might be right. One of our state legislators, I won't get into names, it doesn't matter, but I was just recently told this. He's an advocate of this system. And he said the reason is that under the current circumstance, those states that are considered swing states are the only states that get visited.
It's true.
And so he's going, we need to spread this out, and all 50 states need to have some exposure to the candidates. And I'm trying to remember which one of the presidential candidates a few years ago, a number of years ago,
Nixon
tried to. Yes, it was Nixon.
And that's why he lost the debate.
Committed to going to all 50 states. Folks, it's not possible.
No.
And you go, is that really the reason? I reject that as the reason because it defies common sense.
And Mike, even in the last election, look, they were both going to Wisconsin, which Wisconsin was not considered a battleground state.
Right.
It was purely a Hillary state. Even the great state of Michigan was perceived Hillary.
Right.
Up until when it got tight at the end there. But yet you still saw Trump and Hillary going to both of those states. You even saw Hillary go to Arizona.
Right.
Which has been a classically Republican state. So it's not entirely true to say that the candidates only confine themselves to battleground states, because we even saw in this last one they didn't confine themselves strictly to battleground states.
Well, my oldest kept begging me to take him to a Trump thing.
Right.
And Trump would come over and only go to the east side. He did one time, and we had a game, so I couldn't take Landon. I said, listen, he ain't coming back. The state's blue. He's not coming back. He's making a last-ditch effort.
Well, you were as wrong as Miles' son.
I was wrong. And when he came, as soon as he found out I came back, I got a hold of you and said, "Hey, I got to get him in there. How do I do this?"
Yeah.
Because he came back, and I said, Landon goes, "He's coming back." Ha ha ha! I go, Landon, this isn't normal. We must be in play.
I told you guys for months we're in play.
I know. And we all discussed it.
Are
right?
you hearing what he's saying to me right now, Miles?
Yeah.
I'm saying,
I told you for months that was the case.
Miles, I think he was right, but I won't tell him.
Yeah, he's a lot of work, I'm telling you.
But I did think he'd come back because we're not a state that you would traditionally campaign in.
Yep.
And it's right. But I'm not sending my candidate to Idaho. Because if he's in Boise, somebody in the most northern point of Idaho still has to drive, 6-7 hours to see him? So the whole concept of going to all 50 states doesn't make sense. Because, okay, you stopped in California and San Francisco. Do you realize how big California is? You have to go to California 7 or 8, 9 times to even just hit the seaboard. So that idea, I think, doesn't make sense.
It's an interesting thing about California, just to deviate for just a second. I just saw a report that they're the 6th biggest economy in the world.
Well, they fell. They used to be 5th.
Well, the one I saw said 6th. Maybe it was a media source. I don't know. But they're pretty big anyhow. And yet we continue to spend more money in the southern half of the state of California to defend them from each other than we did at the peak of the Iraq War. And there are more civilian deaths caused by violence in the southern half of California than we lost U.S. military personnel at the peak of the Iraq War. Well, yes, I believe in the Electoral College, I'm just telling you. Because I don't think those folks represent us. They don't, to Miles's point, they shouldn't have so much more say than the great state of Rhode Island or Michigan or any other. And by the way, I respect them. If that's who they want as a president, God bless them. But this is not going to be mob rule.
And when you say 6th largest economy in the world, you're talking that means USA number 1, China number 2. We're talking 6th largest compared to countries.
Countries, yeah.
So just so everybody understands,
and
countries.
And that's just their tax base.
Yeah. But that's incredible to look at the world and know that one state is the 6th largest economy. And what are we trying to make the rest of our country like? California.
Not me.
Not anymore.
Not me. Listen, the northern half of California that I kept excluding from those terrible numbers, they just want to live like regular people.
Yeah.
Folks, I'm hearing the music, so I got to tell you, I don't think we're going to see an end to the Electoral College anytime soon.
No.
That said,
Right.
please follow us on Twitter at
Heyo.
Talk Mike Hewitt and on Facebook at /The Mike Hewitt Show, and of course the MikeHewittShow.com. I got to tell you, I'm having a lot of fun doing this show. How about you boys?
Love it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. All right, folks. Listen, all jokes aside, thank you too. Thank you, Brian. But mostly, listeners, I appreciate you very, very much. We'll be here next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye now.
RenegadeRiver.com is new and used firearms, all priced to sell, plus ammo, reloading supplies, optics, clothing, lasers, and yes, tactical gear. RenegadeRiver.com, family owned right here in Michigan, because you deserve it.